Up there's Jake.
Perfect.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Lights Out Fantasy Football Podcast. Process over results live. I am here as your host, Mike Tagliere. You guys know me. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tagliere NFL. Alongside of me, I have my co-host Joe Holka. Joe, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much, man. It was a fun week 10, but looking forward to this week. I'm actually going to get to go to the Vikings-Cardinals game, so pretty excited about that. And, it was a good week last week. Could have been a little bit better, but this week's going to be, I think, a little bit better even. A couple of nice matchups we see that kind of jump off the page, so excited to talk about it.
No, absolutely. And you guys can follow him on Twitter at Joe Holka. And then we got our tripod here. We got our weekly guest, Mr. Jake Ciely. Jake, what's going on, buddy? Oh, I don't, Jake, we can't hear you. I don't know if your mic's, the mic's cutting out. All right, so while Jake's trying to get that figured out, guys, I just want to start by saying thank you to you guys, first and foremost, because without you guys, we wouldn't be here. That's first off. And second off, you guys have shown so much support, leaving iTunes reviews, doing all that stuff, listening to the episodes, that we actually have a sponsor for our show, guys. And it's a good one, too. It's one that I'm actually excited because, you know, when you start doing these things, you want to make sure that you have a sponsor that you want to support. And and it's funny because Joe actually uses the sponsor. So this episode is sponsored by Roto Tracker. It's an amazing new tool for all daily fantasy sports players to help you get a grip on game selection. I don't know about you, but I hate keeping track of my results by sifting through messy spreadsheets and reams of data on my CSV files, as I can never see what games I am good in. I just want to see quickly and easily how well I am doing and where I need to improve in time for my next weekend of action. And that's where Roto Tracker comes in. This tool is really a game changer because me personally, I'm actually a person that was looking for something like this. Roto Tracker lets you see all your results in one place with browser extensions on Chrome, Firefox that pulls your data from all the major DFS sites. So you don't have to do it. It pulls it from there in just one click. My data is kept up to date and I barely lifted a finger. For those really love that digging into your data, finding out where you're succeeding, Roto Tracker has the most comprehensive filtering and report functionality on the market. So although simple to use, Roto Tracker certainly packs an analytical punch. You can sign up for a free Roto Tracker account right now by going to rototracker.com/POR. That stands for process over results. So rototracker.com/POR. And thanks to our special partnership, if you ever upgrade to a premium one, they're going to give you an automatic 10% off just by using that code that we use. And I know that Joe is the one who actually found this sponsor for us, and they were in contact with him. He's been using their product. Joe, talk a little bit about what it's done for you in your DFS game.
Yeah, Roto Tracker is fantastic, especially those Chrome extensions. I started using it this year after someone at FantasyLabs put me on it. And basically, you have one click on the mouse every week, and you download your entire history from the previous week, and then you can basically just sort by whatever you want. You can see your ROI, obviously, right away, but sorting by DraftKings and FanDuel individually, and then kind of breaking things down by your head-to-head exposure and your GPPs that you played on both sites is just really valuable, I think, when you're kind of looking at what you want to do moving forward, just to see where you were most successful and what kind of game choices you made last week.
And that's the crazy part is, like, you know, I never had a tool like that. And so I was keeping track of it on my own. Now I'm in Arizona, but it's good to hear that there's a tool that exists because I'm going to be going back to Chicago. Jake, do we have your mic working now?
Good now?
Oh, it's there, but let me, hold on, I could probably turn you up. I don't know if you're, it's just really low. Let me turn your mic up.
I turned myself up. There you go.
There you go. You sound good. It's good to have you back, Jake. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Doing good, man. So we can start off by talking about just touching on last week. You know, your call of the week, Jake. It really panned out. Tyrell Williams, man, fantastic call. We are going to. So Jake, every week we're going to have Jake's Ace of the Week. Basically, Jake is a top 5 expert at Fantasy Pros 4 years running now. So every single week he's going to give you a player that you should have in every DFS lineup, essentially, regardless of price. So we're going to get into that in just a second. But first, I want to go to Joe. So every single week he's going to give you guys a few game selections. So basically, if you're playing on DraftKings, if you're playing for $5, $20, or above, he's going to give you one game from each of those to kind of pay attention to if you're playing tournaments.
Yeah, so on DraftKings this week, things are kind of back to normal after some of those bigger prize pools last week. If you're looking to multi-enter something kind of at the lower stakes, I do like the play action. It's only $3, but 27% of the field is being paid out. But the thing about that is you're going to face a pretty big field at 470,000 people. But there's a first prize of $50K at just the $3 entry, so a little bit easier to max enter. I really like kind of at the mid stakes. We talked about it before, the $9 slant. It's a pretty common one to play. And we actually had someone contact us on Twitter that listened to this podcast last week that played the slant and had a really nice payout. So that's nice to see. They pay out 27% of the field, and then the first place prize of $25K. But the field is a lot smaller. It's only 57,000. So really like the slant kind of at that mid range at $9. And then kind of at the higher stakes, I really like some of those 3-max tournaments that they have with those smaller fields. So the $150 power sweep 3-max is a really nice tournament, and the rake kind of goes down significantly as well when you go up to the higher stakes. So the rake on these is a little bit under 10%. A lot of the smaller stakes ones are around 15. And I also like the Juke 3-max, which is $400. But both of these tournaments, you won't have to face a field over 1,000 people, so you can afford to be a little bit less contrarian. I really like playing some of these smaller field games and just going up in stakes a little bit because you do have some nice upside still. Both of these tournaments, you still have a $10,000 first prize. So still some really nice upside, but you don't have to beat near as many people.
No, that's awesome. See, that's what I'm saying, guys. So if you guys are looking to play a tournament at the start of every show, Joe's going to give you a few games just that he would recommend. Basically, that's going to give you the best opportunity when it comes to payouts and things like that. Also, at the start of the show, we're going to actually start talking about quarterbacks, running backs. We're going to talk about all of our players coming up here in just a second. But first, we're going to go out to Mr. Ciely, the accurate all-in kid. Like I said, last week his call was Tyrell Williams, and it was fantastic. Our tournament lineup that we actually built on this show last week did cash in tournaments. It wasn't like a huge payout, but it did cash, which is always nice to hear. Jake, who is the one player you're looking at this week?
Yeah, no pressure after how well Tyrell Williams did last week. Hey, there was Rashard Matthews too. Don't forget. So he was. I think he wasn't he part of the lineup too? He was very closely.
Well, no, we talked about him. We didn't play him in the lineup.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we went to Mark Murray. Yeah, and Eli Rogers. Yeah, that was we insisted that Mike had to get Eli Rogers.
I did, and he panned out.
I like Rashard Matthews again this week. He's not my pick. I actually also like Steve Smith and Randall Cobb, who are very close to being my pick. And so we're going to talk about those guys later on. But if I'm going with just one this week, and I'm paying up for one, so he's not technically a sleeper. Randall Cobb would be more the sleeper. I'm going with LaShawn McCoy because I think he's going to be a fade this week. Or not a fade. I just don't think it's the blind spot, which is what I call in my articles, is I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him because everybody's going to be on LeGarrette Blount of the world and some of the higher price. Le'Veon Bell is going to be hugely valuable. And I think the fact that, especially with LeGarrette Blount's price being so close to McCoy, is why. Here's what it really comes down to. LaShawn McCoy, Buffalo Bills, and I'm sure you've seen this, Mike, because Pro Football Focus is the ones who talks about it. Yards before contact, the Buffalo Bills are creating a top 5. The Cincinnati Bengals, yards before contact defensively, allow top 5. So if you just put the two together for any running back, basically it's not true math, but if you put the two together, it's almost like he's going to get 5 yards before he even gets touched every single play. And that's not really how you put the two together, but it just goes to show how great this matchup is for him, how much he's used in this offense. You talk about a usage percentage. You talk about the fact that what the Bengals give up on the season, their defense isn't that great. Heck, they let Rashad Jennings run out the clock on them last week, which is Rashad Jennings and not LaShawn McCoy. And I look at the last thing is LaShawn McCoy. Double-digit points in every single game with 3 high scores of 19.8, 25.1, and 32.7 on DraftKings, and that's why I love him this week.
I love that call, actually, and it's funny you said you have to pay up to get him. I actually thought that he was kind of cheap considering he's LaShawn McCoy. Like on DraftKings, it seems like the running backs are priced through the roof this week. Usually they've been maxing out right at like the top of the 7,000 range, and now you're seeing Le'Veon Bell 8,800. I like the call a lot because I've said that a lot of people are stuck on the fact that the Bengals were a really good defense the last couple of years, and you would have expected them to be a good defense this year because they didn't really. I mean, they lost Leon Hall, but it wasn't like a huge loss to the defense. But they're one that's been stepped on all over the field via the pass, via the run. So I love the call.
Well, that's part of it too. To running backs, they've given up almost 400 passing yards and 3 touchdowns so far. And that's a big part of McCoy's game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake, we're really starting this early too. I thought McCoy was going to be kind of my under the radar running back. I'm going to have to kind of scramble a little bit here. But no, I love McCoy for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. He's at that kind of weird price point too. Like people are scrolling down and they see like these top guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, and you're going to miss Sean McCoy goes down drastically at 6,900 after some of those guys that are up there.
Blind spot, man. Tony is
it's crazy, blind spot.
It is. He's right in between. Yeah.
Yards before contact is a super valuable stat. It's something that I use a ton in my rushing expectation stuff. So that's kind of one of the reasons I was so high on Spencer Ware this year. He's one of those guys that was really big on his yards before contact, guys like Amir Abdullah. But LaShawn McCoy, obviously, I think that's a really great stat to bring up.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fantastic play. So you guys heard it here. Jake's ace of the week is LaShawn McCoy. Get him in your lineups. I liked him. I have 2 running backs that I have bold in my things here, and he's one of them. So definitely like the call there. But as we do, guys, we're going to start at the quarterback position. We're going to touch on every position. And then at the end of the show, we're going to create a DraftKings tournament lineup. So, guys, if you guys play on FanDuel, you can use these lineups and this like over there. You could use like apply the information we're giving you over there because a lot of the pricing, it does translate. I know you could fit a lot more studs in FanDuel lineups, but at least you get a good idea as to who we like. So let's get it started. I'm just going to kick it off, guys. I'm going to throw it out to you guys if you guys think I'm nuts, but I typically tend not to pay up at quarterback, but this week I want to pay for Tom Brady.
I can see it. I could definitely say, hey, you got the narrative. Him and Julian Edelman have never played in San Francisco, and this is the hometown. This is where they're headed.
I'm not a narrative guy usually. I mean, and the thing is, like, that could just be
I'm being facetious, of course.
I know you are. But Joe, what do you think of Tom Brady? Are you willing to pay up for him, or are you like, nah? Because there are other quarterbacks I like, but I just feel like Brady's a sure thing.
Yeah, I like Brady quite a bit. It's been tough. Like the games this year where the few that he's faltered has been the games where LeGarrette Blount has just gone crazy, and then James White that other game. So there hasn't been a ton of room for both of them, and I am leaning more towards a LeGarrette Blount play this week above kind of Tom Brady because they're just another guy that I like in that price range a little bit more. But I think Brady's a fine play. That spread is kind of out of control, which I kind of like a tighter spread when I'm looking at my quarterbacks, and I do like quarterbacks at home as well. But, I mean, there's not much to argue with Tom Brady, like what he's done this year. I mean, he's been the most efficient quarterback in the league, and that's something we're looking for, number one.
Well, the thing I look at is that the 49ers, regardless home or road, over their last 8 games, they've allowed 6 teams to score 33 or more points against them. So you're looking at the Patriots team. They're going to score at least 5 touchdowns in this game. LeGarrette Blount, I do like, and I typically don't like him on DraftKings formats, but 6,400, he's my other running back that I have in bold. I think that you could stack. I think you could play both Brady and LeGarrette Blount. Jake, what do you say? Like, who's your favorite quarterback play?
I think for purposes of similar to Tom Brady's, I don't see a lot of people being on Tom Brady for the fact that Chris Hogan's now out too. So you have Chris Hogan, no Rob Gronkowski. So I think he's actually going to end up being a contrarian play, especially for the price that goes along with him. And as we talked about last week and Joe brought up, quarterback's pretty flat. But that being said, I think that he'll be lower than very many. The other one, kind of in that blind spot again, I don't think people are paying attention, or I haven't seen people talking about Andrew Luck this week, and he's coming off the bye. What, is this who you're going to go with? Is that why you're shaking your head?
I got another one, but Luck was the guy I was talking about before when I was saying about that higher price option I like. But go ahead.
Yeah, see, so there you go. Apparently, Joe and I are just going to have the same lineup every single week. But it's just look,
we're making money, I think, though.
That's good. That's the good part about it. It's just he's got the 5th most fantasy points per game, and people just aren't paying attention to that. He's got 5 20-plus point games over 2 of the last 30. And going against the Titans, who, if you look at it, they're the most fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks. A lot of times people look at the full season, and what I like to do, especially not just a DFS, but for seasonal too, is people don't look at the last 4 weeks because that's usually a lot more telling of the recent trends because, week 1, completely different team usually at times between injuries or changes or anything like that. So the last 4 weeks, the fact that the Titans are just being obliterated by quarterbacks, which includes a game versus Andrew Luck. And so I'm looking at Andrew Luck in this game. I just think he's a terrific play. Again, a lot of people aren't talking about him. He's at the high end. And maybe I can steal Joe's other one on 2, Kirk Cousins at home against the Packers.
He does like quarterbacks at home.
Yeah, okay. So I guess going third isn't a great thing to do because that was all 3 of my guys. But,
I knew I could probably guess the other one. That's
anyways, awesome. Kirk Cousins I think is definitely in play in cash games if you're going to kind of pay down a little bit against Green Bay. talk about efficiency. They're giving up some of the most efficient quarterbacks of the year. He's a home favorite with a tight spread, with a high team total. He's got all the indicators I normally look for. So do like Cousins a lot. Definitely going to roll him out in cash quite a bit. One guy I think that could be under the radar a bit is Andy Dalton. He's a little bit cheaper. He's 5,700. So he's kind of in that Cousins range, kind of a nice little pivot maybe. Same thing. He's a home favorite. He's at a tight spread. But against Buffalo, I think that game could be a little bit more high scoring maybe than people think. And I really like the Andy Dalton to AJ Green stack this week with a lot of people that are probably going to pay up at running back.
My issue with Dalton is that his upside has been like non-existent this year. He's been a solid real life quarterback, but he hasn't really posted big fantasy numbers. He's had 1 or less passing touchdowns in 7 of his 9 games this year. I know he's ran for 2 touchdowns. Rex Ryan did come out this week and say that he is going to double AJ Green, basically just take him out of the game. So I think that Tyler Eifert could be an interesting play. I just don't know if Andy Dalton offers me the upside I want in a tournament. One person that and Jake, I want to get your take on it because you're a New York guy. You know the Giants pretty well. Eli Manning, I don't know why people aren't talking about him more this week. The Bears defense allows 29 points per game on the road. They've been murdered by quarterbacks anytime they play on the road. They're not allowing anything to running backs. I think they're averaging just 3.7 yards per carry against the Bears. The Giants passing offense, they've changed a bit. They're moving Odell Beckham around. Sterling Shepard looks fine at playing out of the slot. Victor Cruz is due back. I don't see a way that the Bears stop the Giants' passing offense this week.
You're reading my columns? Is that what you're doing, Mike? I appreciate that. My 2 blind spot quarterbacks were Andrew Luck and Eli Manning. Eli Manning was the other one. And hey, this is straight from the column. Bears have allowed at least 228 passing yards and a touchdown in each of the last 5 games. Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, and Jameis Winston averaging 320 yards and 2 touchdowns in those matchups. The only 2 lower matchups of the 2 are Blake Bortles and Sam Bradford. Excuse us if Sam Bradford doesn't put up big numbers. I'm with you the way they attack the Bears. The only concern I have, and this was just reported out today, and that's why, if the weather holds as of right now, sustained winds are around 28 to 30 miles an hour. Once you hit that 25 sustained, that's when you start to have a little bit of effect on a game where you can start to say, because now the gusts up to being 40 miles an hour. That could definitely affect somebody like Eli Manning.
Yeah, that would definitely affect my decision to play Eli Manning. So, guys, pay attention to that, and it's a good time to me to tell you guys on Sunday morning I do a live show. I'm sure a lot of you guys are there at the live show, but on Sunday, that's where I can recap and I can talk about those players that we may discuss. Because another game that weather is a real concern, the reason we probably haven't talked about it, because Ben Roethlisberger in Cleveland, not only is Ben Roethlisberger on the road, but it's reportedly going to be a mess, that there's going to be like 40-mile-an-hour winds in Cleveland, which could play towards Le'Veon Bell. Now, are you guys on Russell Wilson? He's at home. Philly's a different defense on the road.
And the fact that Russell Wilson's back to being Russell Wilson, no knee brace, looks 100% in the pocket. Yeah, I have no problem with Russell Wilson this week, no matter the rest of the year. Russell Wilson's always going to be in the conversation for me at this point.
Yeah, I just think of the pace of that game, though, just playing against Philly, and they kind of like to slow things down a little bit, too. People talk about the Cowboys slowing things down, but the pace of the Eagles has been almost as bad.
Yeah, I just don't know if the Eagles are going to be able to move the ball. I don't know if Carson Wentz throws a single touchdown in this game. Ryan Matthews doesn't play at all. Like, he does one week, the week that after he plays just 8 snaps the 2 prior weeks. But the way I look at it is the run game may not fully be there with Thomas Rawls. They said they want to slowly work him in. We know CJ Prosise is more of that hybrid wide receiver. So,
right before we came on, Pete Carroll flipped. Right before, there is no easing in with Thomas. Have no question, he'll be ready to go. He'll be fine, and there's no mixing him in. So I agree with you. I don't think that it's actually going to happen. I'm just letting you know that it changes by the hour.
I will say this though about Pete Carroll. Like, he's pretty honest. Like, most people don't realize.
Yes.
Pete Carroll has been really honest with us. So I mean, that's something to look at. And I mean, Thomas Rawls. It's not a great matchup against Philly. I think that it's better to throw the ball against them. But do you guys have anybody else at quarterback you really wanted to just bring up? I know we talked about like 6 already, so do you want to talk about some running backs?
The rest of them? No.
Yeah. Let's talk about some running backs. You mentioned LaShawn McCoy. Joe, we're going to let you go first so we don't steal your thunder here. Who's a running back that you have your eye on?
I think I'm going to take the easy way out, but he is probably the best play on the board at running back. Le'Veon Bell, especially with that wind, I think they're just going to feed him the ball. Just the volume in general that I think he's going to get their favorite, and it's Cleveland, right? Like, they're going to be ahead in this game. They're going to be ahead very early. I think they're going to lean on Le'Veon Bell quite a bit, especially if the wind kind of gets out of control. So I really like him in this matchup, obviously. But one other guy kind of in that LaShawn McCoy range, Spencer Ware. I'm sure you guys know that Mike and I are very high on Spencer Ware. We have been for quite a while, but home favorite. I really like him this week, especially against Tampa Bay. People kind of look at them as like a funnel defense because people think that they are really stout against the run, but it's actually kind of evened out in the past couple of weeks, and they haven't been so good against the run. So I do kind of like Spencer Ware this week in general.
I was kind of shocked to see Tampa Bay's run defense allowing some running over the last couple of weeks, because with Gerald McCoy, when they missed him, that's when they allowed a lot of production to like Cameron Artis-Payne. And I know he was dinged up when I think Todd Gurley had a decent game. So they're better with McCoy. I'm a big fan of Spencer Ware, so I just don't believe in Alex Smith. They should give him the ball a ton this week. As for Le'Veon Bell, like I had him in my cash lineup last week. I had him and Antonio Brown. I loved them in that match. Like this game, like against Cleveland, you should love him. The problem is the price is all the way up to 8,800, so it's like trying to build around him. So you'd probably have to go cheap at some other positions, which we'll try and hit on a few cheap options that you could stick into lineups. But a fun fact about the Cleveland Browns is that not only do they get destroyed against the pass, but against running backs, they've actually allowed a rushing touchdown in every game against teams not named the Ravens. The Ravens have played them twice this year, and they didn't score in either game. Every other team has scored a rushing touchdown. So Le'Veon Bell should score a rushing touchdown this week, and we all know he's seeing like 20 targets a game. So he's always that high floor option. It's just trying to find out other ways to build your lineup. Jake, outside of LaShawn McCoy, who else you got at running back?
I like Latavius Murray this week, and it's not just because of the 3 touchdowns that he had against the Broncos. If I'm looking at this as a matchup, is the fact that how do you beat the Texans this year? You do it on the ground. They're very beatable in the ground. Actually, they're not just beatable on the ground. It's a matchup to exploit on the ground. It's not one to look at to go against for the pass. In fact, what I had here is that every single before the Lions and the Jaguars, the last 2 games, and we're talking about the Lions and the Jaguars backfield. Keep that in mind. The Raiders had given up at least 108 rushing yards or a touchdown in every single game, including many with 2 rushing scores. And in games where Murray's touched the ball at least 14 times, averaging 20.1 points. I think this is a game where they lean on him. If he gets his 14, 15 touches or more, I think this is a game where he puts up easily 2, 3, most likely 3 times his value and his price of 6,400. So I really like that's FanDuel, by the way. His price is still very good on DraftKings too, by the way.
Yeah, no, I like that call. It's just he's off the main slate, which is why I didn't really look at him too much. But I do like Latavius Murray against Houston. That's how you beat that team.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're looking at the main slate, another one volume-wise, I'm not super excited about this, but it's similar to Todd Gurley a few weeks ago. And granted, it never worked out, but it was Todd Gurley. He eventually reached that price where you're kind of like, it's the talent. I kind of almost want to buy into Todd Gurley. Like people who play fantasy baseball know this too. Is like after somebody's slumping for 3 weeks, it's kind of like, oh, Bryce Harper is finally only $3,200. I have to put Bryce Harper in my lineup. Right. That's kind of how I felt with Todd Gurley at this point. Given his price, I kind of feel like I almost have to find a way to play Lamar Miller in at least 1 or 2 lineups. Again, similar matchup to exploit here. I know that he's not 100%, but if I'm looking at somebody with no Will Fuller likely this week, DeAndre Hopkins hasn't got anything going, maybe they can get Lamar Miller involved a little bit more in this game. And if he can just put up 100 combined yards, you're looking at a good – his price is so low now.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is like you were talking about Todd Gurley, and it triggered I had to talk to you guys. I had to talk to you guys about it because I feel like Todd Gurley's a decent play this week.
5K.
I tried it last week. What'd you say? What'd you say, Joe?
Just 5K this week. Like
that's what I'm
ridiculous.
talking about.
Well, you're getting a workhorse running back, so even if he doesn't, blow the roof off or anything like that, I just feel like this is a game where the Rams can run as much as they want because the Dolphins, and by the way, we don't touch really on defense in this show, but guys, I want to play the Rams defense in our tournament lineup. So a lot of people are on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to be the highest owned defense of the week because Jared Goff's the starting quarterback and all this and that. But guys, understand there's 2 offensive linemen now, Mike Pouncey and Brandon Albert for the Dolphins. They're going to be missing from Ryan Tannehill's offensive line. That's his left tackle and his center, 2 very important parts of his offensive line. Ryan Tannehill struggles under pressure. He is honestly, he's the second worst quarterback in all of football when he's under pressure, and he's going to be. We know that the Rams bring pressure. Aaron Donald, they're not going to have an answer to stop him. I think Ryan Tannehill's going to be on his back a lot of this game. I just think that it's a correlation play in a tournament where you could stick in Gurley and a Rams defense. And I mean, I don't know if you guys think I'm crazy. I just think
Are we talking defense now? Is that what we're doing?
No, I just wanted to touch on that because I think that the Rams have gone overlooked because everybody wants to play the Dolphins.
Oh, because
there's quite a few plays this week at defense.
What's that?
There's quite a few plays, I think, this week at defense, but I think the Rams are for sure to play.
Yeah, Joe, because one of the defense that I like for the exact same price happens to be something he's wearing and he has right behind him.
The Bears?
Which one?
The Cardinals. That's the only one you're wearing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you jumped on, I'm actually going to be at that game, so I might play some Cardinals defense.
Oh, there you go.
Just for
you want to talk about offensive lines to exploit there, Mike?
Yeah. That's actually I actually have them. They're my other defense that I had in bold is the Cardinals defense. I like them. I just wish they were at home. I would prefer them a little bit more. Yeah. If Matthew is playing, like that would help. And one more play at running back, guys, and I want to talk through this one because I think Isaiah Crowell is a fantastic play at 39.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% on board.
What do you think, Joe?
I don't have him on my player pool right now, but I'm interested to see what you guys think about him.
Well, so the Pittsburgh Steelers' run defense is bad without Cam Hayward. Cameron Hayward has missed a couple games this year, and in games with him out, they have allowed 6 yards per carry. Pittsburgh, that game we're talking about, the fact that Pittsburgh is struggling to generate any pressure on defense. Their defensive line, it's just not doing any work. Their secondary is meh. Which I'm not opposed to using Corey Coleman this week if you had to, but in a game we're talking about the winds, like the weather there, I think they want Isaiah Crowell to do a lot of work. I just don't think that they've had opportunities to do it. In this game, I don't think that it's something that they should run away from. He's only 3,900. I'm not saying like he's like Le'Veon Bell where you could just lock in his points, but I'm just saying at 3,900 for a guy that's going to be locked in for 15 touches because they've been getting him more and more work on passing downs, which I thought would have gone to Duke Johnson after this long, but apparently it's not. Jake, do you have any other reasons like why you like Crowell?
For the fact that, again, from my column, in games with double-digit carries so far this year, he's averaging almost 16 points per game in this kind of scoring, and that's what I really like about him. This is a game where he should get double-digit carries. And if he talked about the defense, the only two teams that didn't find the end zone, Spencer Ware, who still ran 13 times for 82 yards against this defense, and those Baltimore Ravens, which you kind of made the point before. This is why you don't care that much when you call out matchups for that reason. All the rest of the teams, and again, I just really go back to the usage is what I expected, even before the weather was a concern. If you're the Cleveland Browns and you're looking at a way to have any chance at winning this game, you want to slow down, you want to control the clock, you want to control the ball and use Isaiah Crowell. Look at what was working at the beginning of the year for you. Yes, you haven't won a game, but at least you're in quite a few games with Isaiah Crowell doing as well as he did to start this season, and that's why I think, again, he just has to get double-digit carries to stick with what he's been doing all this year is to get about 15, 16 fantasy points.
That's kind of where I'm at. I just think as a cheap play, I think he could be considered for cash. I think that I don't know if I would trust him in a tournament, but I think in cash, he's definitely viable with all the carries he's going to get.
Yeah, I think one reason I wasn't super invested in him yet is he's a lot more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. He's $6,200 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So, yeah, that's a pretty big discrepancy. But there's just one thing in general, I think, on DraftKings this year. Like, it's the same thing that's been happening with LeGarrette Blount. Like, people don't want to play him on DraftKings. But, like, the fact that he doesn't catch passes is, like, priced in quite a bit to the point almost where there's a little bit of value in some of those guys on DraftKings, I think. Like, if you've been playing LeGarrette Blount on DraftKings this year, you've been just smashing and getting him at lower ownership too. So I don't mind the Crowell play, kind of the more I think about it in that matchup, and definitely at that price. 3,900 is insane.
No, yeah, I just looked at that. Like, I wanted to make sure I wasn't nuts, but Cam Hayward missed 2 games this year. They allowed 6 yards per carry and 4 rushing touchdowns in those games. In games with Hayward, they allowed just 3.4 yards per carry before, Ezekiel Elliott was Ezekiel Elliott. So that I don't think we need to touch too much on running back anymore. I do like Carlos Hyde for 4,900. I think he could get some garbage time points, and I don't think he's going to be owned at all. If you guys recall the game against Seattle where Carlos Hyde, he scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I think it could be a similar thing against the Patriots this week. But going over to wide receiver, I talked about Eli Manning. My favorite play is Odell Beckham, 8,500 against the Bears. The Bears are allowing the most fantasy points to wide receivers. Tracy Porter, that's who I think that the Bears are going to shadow with Odell Beckham, and good luck. That's good luck.
Tough limb you're going out on there.
Yeah. No, I think he's worth every penny. I'd rather roster Odell Beckham at his price than Antonio Brown at what is he, 9,500?
Yeah. I'm with you.
So that's why I'm saying I think Odell Beckham is my favorite play.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
I if you noticed before, I was sneaky about throwing all mine out before anybody mentioned them. So you can go ahead and go, Joe, because I already got mine.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did mention AJ Green. I do like him quite a bit, but in that price range, really like Mike Evans this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think a lot of people are going to be kind of thinking of last week, and his price is still up there, 8,100. But I mean, he's probably going to get Phillip Gaines in this game, right?
Yeah, and Marcus Peters is going to be out for the game. I think he was ruled out.
Marcus Peters hasn't been that good anyway. He's just.
I agree, but
he's a ball hawk. That's really what it is.
It is.
Right.
It's true.
So I mean, I do like that matchup. He's a road underdog, but I mean. There's one thing that I do like to touch on with wide receivers is a RotoViz stat called air yards, and it's kind of a predictive type stat just because it's a little bit more than yards just because it takes into account your targets but then your yards as well. So it's more of a big play stat, and Mike Evans, AJ Green have been just smashing at air yards. So it's one of the guys that I'm kind of looking at for sure in tournaments. And I think a lot of these higher owned wide receivers that are in really good spots this week could go under owned just because everyone's going to want to play Zeke. Everyone's going to want to play Le'Veon Bell. So I really like that kind of going the opposite way and paying up for some wide receivers in tournaments this week.
Yeah, so if you went down to like Todd Gurley and Isaiah Crowell, like you can get some of those top tier wide receivers in there. I built a lineup with Odell Beckham and Mike Evans earlier. Jake, what about you? Any high priced wide receivers you like, or would you rather go? I think there's a lot of guys in the mid tier, like the middle price guys that are actually solid this week.
Yeah, that's where I'm attacking this week, as a matter of fact. There are obviously, I love Odell Beckham. I do like the Mike Evans play as well. But the guys I mentioned before, so Randall Cobb, here's the big appeal. Again, another jersey right behind Joe here. If you notice what Stephon Diggs did to Kendall Fuller last week, guess what Randall Cobb gets this week? He gets the Kendall Fuller. And I think the fact that Josh Norman's going to be, obviously, I don't think he stays on Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams. I think he's going to probably see a mix of both of them, which obviously limits their upside a little bit. But the matchup here, I still think they're going to be fine plays, and I like them. For seasonal, obviously, you're playing both. But I think this is the game where Randall Cobb can make one of his, oh, wow, what the heck? This is the Randall Cobb we've been waiting for all year long. Very low floor, given the risk and the injury and it always being left out. But I just love the upside for the price, somebody who's been priced down because of what's been going on this season. So he's one of them. The other, real quickly, is just Rashard Matthews. I just love what he's been doing, again, on a per-target basis this week. We talked about it last week. Just go back and look what we watched last week. It's the same thing, and then the Colts have given up 5 receiver touchdowns in the last 2 games. But the other one, this one, I dug deeper for this, is Steve Smith against the Cowboys. And everybody knows that the Cowboys secondary has been decimated by injuries. And I think on paper, everybody just always thinks, oh, Mike Wallace should be able to have one of his 3 catches for 110 yards game. But then I looked, and these are the receivers that have caught touchdowns against the Cowboys so far this year. Looking over the middle of the field is the fact that Sterling Shepard, Victor Cruz, Jamison Crowder, Jeremy Curley, Brandon LaFell, Randall Cobb, Jordan Matthews, Terrell Pryor, Tony Brown, Eli Rogers. If you're noticing the theme there, the only big name on the outside is Antonio Brown because Terrell Pryor to a degree too, but Jordan Matthews plays the slot. And then most of these guys, the Crowders, the Shepards, the Cobbs, they're over the middle damaged guys. They're the guys who make their space over the middle of the field, yards after the catch. Who's going to do that, Steve Smith or Mike Wallace? Steve Smith.
Right. Yeah, I actually like the call on Steve Smith. I said that I think that Mike Wallace is a fade this week. I would prefer Steve Smith. I think I'd prefer him in cash, though, because in tournaments, I almost want to.
He doesn't have the 150-yard 2-touchdown upside type of thing.
Right. I don't think that he has that game left in him anymore. I love the Randall Cobb call. Before Randall Cobb was dealing with the hamstring thing, he was really involved in the offense. He had caught 27 passes in the 3 games before he got hurt. He was seeing 11 or more targets in each of those games. So, yeah, I think it's funny. I had Kendall Fuller. I had the notes here because I like Randall Cobb. Kendall Fuller is allowing a 79% catch rate in coverage. So Randall Cobb, if he sees 11 targets, he may catch 8 or 9 of them. So love Randall Cobb. Another name that pops up right underneath him, he's one of my bold ones, is Doug Baldwin.
Of course.
I mentioned, he had his best game of the season last week, and it's not factored in because it was on Monday night. It basically all ties back to what do we believe about Russell Wilson? If Russell Wilson's firing on all cylinders, we want Doug Baldwin in our lineups. And considering he's costing you just 5,700, he's going to have a matchup in the slot against Malcolm Jenkins, who, by the way, is not supposed to be a cornerback. He's a safety playing corner. And because of that, he's allowing 66% catch rate, and he's allowed 4 touchdowns on 38 targets in coverage. So I do like Doug Baldwin an awful lot, and I also like Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder probably has the best matchup of any Redskins wide receiver, and he is the best Redskins wide receiver. So it kind of matches up. He leads their team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He'll get Micah Hyde in coverage. Micah Hyde has seen 21 targets in coverage. He's allowed 3 touchdowns on those targets. So those are my mid-tier wide receivers. Joe, do you have anybody down, if somebody's wanting to pay up at running back or get some studs in their lineup, who are some of the cheaper options you like at wide receiver?
Yeah, you mentioned him quickly. I played Corey Coleman in a couple Thursday Lock FanDuel tournaments. I think he could have a pretty good game if the things kind of tone down with the win. But I do like Tyreek Hill. I think a lot of people still kind of think he's a fluke. But, I mean, he is absolutely dynamic. I think you can play him with Kansas City D. I think even there's quite a few actual lower tier guys that I like this week. You mentioned Odell Beckham. Probably my favorite guy in this lower tier is Sterling Shepard. For a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned about the Bears D. But I mean, at 4,700, this guy, he's been pretty good. He's going to get LeBlanc probably for most of this game, right? And yeah. I think that's a matchup that Sterling Shepard absolutely can win. And if a lot of people are going to be playing Odell Beckham in this game, I think that you can go down to Sterling Shepard at 4,700 and do a lot of other things with your lineup.
I left one for you, Mike, and you didn't take it. How did you not? Eli Rogers is a must, in my opinion.
He's one of my cheaper ones, 4,300.
Okay, so we're going further down for him. All right, I just want to make sure because I thought he's you start. Actually, I've been starting a lot of lineups with him as one of my first receivers.
Yeah, that's my guy. I like Eli Rogers. He's got a good matchup. We know that. They benched Jamar Taylor. Now it's just a mess there. My only concern is the weather. Obviously, being a slot receiver, it doesn't affect him nearly as much. But Eli Rogers is a good play.
That's why I like him more.
What do you guys think about Jeremy Curley in this week? He's 3,500. The only reason I say that is because we know that the Patriots are going to put up a lot of points. And we can't really believe in Torrey Smith at this point. Do you believe in Quentin Patton?
I don't believe in anybody. My biggest problem is I also don't believe in Colin Kaepernick being able to throw a touch pass. Because he throws one type of pass. It's 100 miles an hour. It doesn't matter if you're 2 yards away or 50 yards away. He has 0 touch. And that's what I'm with you. I actually loved Jeremy Curley at the beginning of this year before Colin Kaepernick took over at quarterback. And I kept saying people need to pay attention to Jeremy Curley to start using him for seasonal purposes at the time too. I'm with you. This matchup would say, hey, Jeremy Curley or somebody in this game is going to be able to do some type of damage. I actually think Vance McDonald is a sneaky play. It'd be if I put out 12 tournament lineups, I might plug in Vance McDonald for one of them. But I just think somebody is going to do something here. It's just who. And it really, again, it comes down to can Kaepernick get the ball and it not bounce off their chest because he has no idea how to tone it down.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a concern, 100%. One other name I had is a really cheap wide receiver. If you're looking for just someone to plug into lineups in a tournament lineup, is Tyler Lockett. The perimeter cornerbacks in Philadelphia, Leotis McKelvin and Nolan Carroll, is it? They allow, I think it's over 16 yards per reception. They don't allow a very high catch rate, but they're allowing a lot of deep balls. So I think that this game kind of suits Tyler Lockett pretty well. If you're looking for a tournament play, not in cash, obviously, but his snaps have been on the rise. He's been getting healthier. Jermaine Kearse just doesn't do anything. So that's done with the wide receivers.
I have one more.
Okay.
One more cheap one.
I have one more mid-range one as well. Go ahead.
Oh, so yours is mid-range? Okay, good. I was about to let you go first to make sure I didn't take yours.
You go ahead. I'm not worried about that.
This is a pure tournament play, in my opinion, but Eddie Royal, because a lot of people are going to be on Cam Meredith, and the history with Jay Cutler is Eddie Royal. He's the one who's had chemistry with him. And if you look at the Giants, what they've done for the entire year is they shut down number one wide receivers. Even last week, A.J. Green got his touchdown, but for most of that game, whether or not he missed a few plays limping around, they did a really good job of bottling him up. And Janoris Jenkins has been one of the best signings all year, but they're more susceptible to number 2 and number 3 wide receivers, especially ones that can do damage over the middle of the field. If you look at other speaking of Jamison Crowder and Cole Beasley, go all the way back to the first game of the season, that's where you can exploit them. And so if they're forced to at least be a little bit aggressive, I think Jordan Howard and Eddie Royal are the two that do the most damage against the Giants.
Yeah, I like the Royal call quite a bit. I think that most people are probably going to be on Meredith, and that has me thinking that Royal is probably the better play in GPPs, especially at that price. One question I did have, we didn't mention Julian Edelman.
I like him.
And I think at mid-range, he's one of the best plays this week. I'm debating between Edelman and Baldwin and Cash, but leaning more towards Baldwin just for probably one of the tight ends we're going to talk about soon. But I'm curious what you guys think about Edelman this week.
Love them. The 49ers give up the most touchdowns to receivers, top 10 in yards per catch. He's been getting the ADOT and the catch percentage are exactly the same as it was last year. It's just the targets have fallen down, and you have the trickle-down effect. It's just this is again similar to Randall Cobb. I just have a feeling this is one of those weeks where it's going to be like, hey, look, there's Julian Edelman. He's finally showed up this year.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like I said about Willie Snead last week, is that there's a 2-touchdown game coming, and it came against Denver. Go figure. But I feel like Julian Edelman has a 2-touchdown game coming, and it could very well be this week. He's seeing plenty of targets. It's over 8 targets a week, and when you're seeing that many targets from Tom Brady, good things are going to happen, especially with Gronk out. And you just said Chris Hogan was announced out?
Yep, Chris Hogan's out as well. That's a surprise, but yeah, he's out as well.
Yeah, so Julian Edelman's a fantastic play. I think we should put him in our tournament lineup.
Hey, you know what it's going to be? I'm going to blame it on the narrative just for you, Mike.
Oh, boy.
Tom Brady and Julian Edelman in San Francisco.
Let's do it. Let's make the stack, man. We might be able to stack another player in that. Wait, Joe, first, you had a mid-tier wide receiver you wanted to get to real quick.
That was it, Edelman.
Oh, Edelman. Let's talk about Martellus Bennett and the tight ends. Martellus Bennett, and then we can end this conversation, right? Totally kidding.
I think that there's only a few tight ends. I mean, I'll just say the only 3 tight ends I've been looking at, actually 4. There's been 4 tight ends. Martellus Bennett's one of them. Julius Thomas, I think, is obvious. Hey, it's the Lions. They give up touchdowns. I don't care. That's all there is to it. Do I need to go into further explanation for Julius Thomas? I don't think so. Zach Miller and then Eric Ebron are basically the 4 tight ends I'm looking at this week. Speaking of Eric Ebron, I know he hasn't scored a touchdown, but God forbid the people in seasonal leagues. I know we're talking DFS, but should I pick up Eric Ebron or CJ Fedorowicz? Why do people hate Eric Ebron? I know he sucks, but something happened in the offseason where he figured out what was wrong with his hands, and people are still so reluctant to trust Eric Ebron.
Eric Ebron's seen a lot of targets. Jacksonville's not the greatest matchup for tight ends,
right?
But a lot of people have been telling me, it's weird. I've heard his name so much this week. I've needed to take a second look, and I'm not against it because when a tight end is going to be in a high-scoring offense and see that many targets, I'm not going to be opposed to him. But I just don't see any reason I would own him over Martellus Bennett this week. My outsider take is if I want to get off Martellus Bennett, and I'd probably pay up a tight end. I think Zach Miller's fine, but I think if you go up to Jordan Reed, he's probably going to have very, very minimal ownership this week, considering his performances of late, considering how many people are going to be playing Martellus Bennett. If they're paying up that high, they're probably going to play Delaney Walker at 5,700, who's a good play too.
He is.
Yeah, I think definitely the cash option is Martellus Bennett, but
absolutely
there are some nice pivots kind of even in that price range that we touched on. I really like paying up a tight end a little bit this week in tournaments. You mentioned Jordan Reed. He's one of the guys I have starred here, but I think we should touch a little bit more on Delaney Walker. I think he's a really good play this week because just in general, I think that game is going to be really high scoring. I think you can game stack that game. I think you should have that game all over your tournament lineups this week. I think if there's one game that might be a little bit more under the radar, might not be, but it's going to be very high scoring, and I'm trying to get as much of those guys in my lineups as I can. His target share is over 25% in the last 4 games, which is pretty crazy for tight ends. It's the highest on this slate, so really like Delaney Walker.
Nobody wants to come in on my Zach Miller.
I'm not against Zach Miller. That's actually the one part of the field where I think that the Giants can be exploited. And if
they have been going all the way back to week 1 again, any decent tight end has done great against them.
It's just such a low team total, and that's something that I think really matters at tight end. So I'm not really on Zach Miller, but I mean 3,800. Not a terrible leverage play off.
Right. That's the only reason I'm looking at it. It's if you want to pivot off Martellus Bennett and stay in that price range.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, like I've been updating my spreadsheet every single week in regards to this Green Bay defense. So Delaney Walker is a really good play. I just think he's going to be extremely high owned. I think he's a great cash game play. 5 tight ends have totaled 5 or more receptions against this defense. But my spreadsheet that I keep updating is the fact that Green Bay has allowed at least 30 points to their opponent in 4 of their last 5 games. And as I mentioned last week, the only team that hasn't done that was the Bears, and that was with Matt Barkley as their quarterback. So this Green Bay defense allows so many points that's why I think that Delaney Walker is a solid play. I just think if you're paying up that high, you might be able to go to Jordan Reed and get like maybe a quarter of their ownership. That's where I'm at.
You can play him with Cousins too. I think a lot of sharp people are going to play Cousins and Reed together this week.
Yes.
Yeah. So is there any defenses that you guys are particularly outside of, like, I love the Rams and the Cardinals. Those are my 2 favorites.
Those are the only 2 that I haven't really even looked that much at. I mean, I've kind of like tried to find other ones, but I just keep coming back to those 2.
I've got a couple. I think New England, obviously, really good play. I don't know if we have to really talk a whole lot about that. We talked about Colin Kaepernick. That's about enough. But I think the Giants, kind of around that price range, I think is a really good play this week. Home favorite, big spread. They do rush the passer quite a bit, and Cutler has been just horrendous. So I think he's got the highest sack rate and interception rate on this slate. So that's always something I'm trying to attack. And their adjusted sack rate is one of the highest as well in Chicago. So really low team total. I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of Giants this week.
Can we talk about that? You should fade David Johnson. Are you guys with me on that? Like fade David Johnson in cash and tournaments this week?
I don't know. Are we really expecting that high of an ownership because maybe of what you're thinking? I was thinking that a lot of people are going to think that because of the matchup, and it's not a matchup to really worry about.
Well, for me, it's more of the concerns that they've overworked him. Over the last 3 weeks, he's now averaging just 3 yards per carry. He's averaging just 1.7 yards after contact, which is way down. Over the first 6 weeks, he averaged 3.2 yards after contact. And he's down 2 offensive linemen. They just lost Evan Mathis. They lost Jared Veldheer, their left tackle, before their bye week. So I'm concerned with that offensive line. Like, Minnesota's at home. I just feel like it's a bad spot for David Johnson.
Yeah,
you're disrespecting my boy. That's all. That's my.
I like David Johnson. Don't get me wrong. That dude's awesome, but
all 3 of us love him. I mean, he just followed me on Twitter last week, so I think I have to play him in the tournament lineup.
He did.
What?
He did. Joe's a big deal.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm hanging up. I'm
man,
I'm officially jealous.
So we talked about a lot of our favorite players, and now it's time to put up or shut up. We're actually going to start creating a lineup. So last week, who started last week?
I did. You guys go.
All right. So Jake, you're going to get to start this one. You get to pick anybody. So guys, if you guys are watching at home, this is going to be a tournament lineup. This is not a cash game lineup. Do not put this in a 50-50 or a head-to-head. This is strictly for upside purposes. Basically, you need to have some contrarian plays inside of it. So that's what we're going to try and do. So kick us off, Jake.
Oh, man. This is, I really want to I don't know what kind of money we're going to have left because I know you want to get that Tom Brady Edelman thing in there, and I know we're paying up. Let me put it this way. We can come back to it if we have money for it because the one person we didn't talk about who is high priced at running back, I have DeMarco Murray in a ton of lineups. I'm letting you know that right now.
Yeah, I don't hate that call at all.
I love DeMarco Murray, but this is GPP, so I will go to wide receiver and let you guys decide if we come back to DeMarco Murray or not, even if we want to save him for last. And I am going to just go with my Randall Cobb pick. I think Randall Cobb is going to be very low owned. Nobody wants him. I think he's going to destroy Fuller this week. The matchup predicts it. If I'm wrong, that's fine, but everything says Randall Cobb should have his best week of the season.
I like it. I don't mind Jake's ace here. I think we could put in LaShawn McCoy. He's not like outrageous. 6,900. I think he's a solid play. And like I said, if people I think a lot of people do look to either the very top of the running backs or they look at let's get some cheap options like a Frank Gore or something like that, which Frank Gore is not a horrible play, but in a tournament, I don't think that I would want Frank Gore.
Agreed. Are we going with McCoy?
Yeah, so we got McCoy and Cobb.
Okay. I'm going to go Sterling Shepard.
I like it. It's a good one. All right.
Yeah, I'm looking for this. Okay, all right. I'm plugging them in as we go to make sure we got the monies.
Yeah.
All good.
Mm-hmm.
We got about 5.5K per guy right now left.
Yeah. Are we? You know what? Are we doing the Tom Brady thing? Or are we going? I mean,
I like
because
it.
if not, I'm going to go to Andrew Luck. But
I say we go Andrew Luck.
yeah, there we go. You got outvoted. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm fine with it because then we can play with Garrett Blunt.
All right.
Actually, that's actually where I'm going to go. I'm going to go Blunt.
So Luck and Blunt.
Wait, is that too expensive? Am I really going to screw us by doing that?
You left us about 52.66 if we plug in your Rams defense.
I was about to say if we do the Rams and Martellus Bennett, are we going to play? Are we going to play Bennett?
I don't know if we need to play. I don't know if we need to play Bennett. What do you think?
Do you want to see if you can get Delaney in there? We would need a super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Delaney's ownership is going to be sky high this week.
Are we locking him in?
But then again, so is Bennett. So is Bennett, though. I mean, but in tournaments, I don't know. There's a lot of sharp people that tend to try and fade the ownership in tournaments. Like it was, what was it? Last week in the Millionaire Maker, Marcus Mariota turned out to only be 14% owned. I think that's what it was.
People get too cute.
Crazy.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Let's see.
We are locking in Ramsey.
If we put in here, we'll just do this and we'll kind of look at. You guys might really like this. If we put in Delaney at tight end and we put Eli Rogers in at wide receiver, your boy, that leaves us with Doug Baldwin, Terrell Pryor as the top options on the board price wise. So you could do Delaney, Rogers, Walker, or Delaney, Rogers and Baldwin, or if we take Delaney out, where else would you like to go?
This is a good question.
Are we that high on Rodgers this week? I know you guys both like him. It wasn't the guy that I've really been looking at.
If you don't want him, you can go Bennett with that way.
What about Corey? No, I was going to say what about Corey Coleman, but
could do that.
I am not a fan of Corey Coleman this week.
I just don't know about the weather. That's what worries me because we're not going to be able to adjust this lineup.
Oh wait, we didn't put Edelman in.
No, we didn't.
Edelman and Bennett. No, you don't want to do that unless you do.
Wait a minute. So let's put the Rams defense in, and so then.
So we're going naked Luck. We could go naked Luck and more of like a Patriots onslaught with.
You could do Edelman, Bennett, Doug Baldwin.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That's actually not a bad idea.
I think our lineup's contrarian enough, and our lineup construction is that I don't think we have to. I mean, I think we could probably play Bennett.
I agree.
That's 3 Patriots. That's a heavy stack there.
So basically,
without Brady, but we still get the best quarterback of the week, Andrew Luck.
Right.
The best quarterback of the week, Andrew Luck.
I think that the inefficiency of 3 is where you start to hit it. I was good with 2, but the 3 kind of concerns me.
But who would we pivot off of Edelman to then?
Edelman could drop out, and we could actually stack Moncrief with Luck, or go Steve Smith, Terrell Pryor, Mike Wallace, Jamison Crowder. But now we're leaving money on the table.
I don't think the Moncrief thing's a bad thing.
Joe?
Yeah, I like Moncrief. I really like T.Y. Hilton, though, too, and that's why I'd almost rather play Luck naked this week, but I don't know. I don't think it's a horrible idea.
After dark.
I don't think this is a bad lineup, though. I mean, we have Andrew Luck, LaShawn McCoy, LeGarrette Blount, Randall Cobb, Sterling Shepard, Julian Edelman, Martellus Bennett, Doug Baldwin, and the Rams. So basically, the reason I don't think it's an awful lineup is because – so what if Brady throws for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they're all to Edelman and Bennett? And like a lot of people are going to do this game stack. They're going to go in onslaught, and they're going to play. So if somebody has Edelman and Bennett in their lineup, you almost can guarantee they're going to play Brady, right?
Yeah.
So we're almost differentiating it by going away from Brady and just getting basically the nuts that he's going to be throwing to.
With probably more upside, and Edelman and Bennett are so cheap that I don't think you really have to worry about playing both those guys in the same lineup. Like
that's kind of where I'm at. I think Blount is a lock to score a touchdown, at least one.
See, but if we're going to go that route, I'd rather drop Blount and go to Spencer Ware. Just my personal preference.
Like it. That gives us 500 to play with too.
Where you could jump up to the Patriots defense even.
Oh, the Rams defense is so good this week.
Or we move off Sterling Shepard and get your boy Rashard Matthews.
There you go. All right.
That's a correlation play with luck.
We gave you two options there, Mike. Do you want Sterling Shepard over to Rashard Matthews, or do you want Rams defense up to Patriots defense?
I want the Rams
with Bennett and Edelman anyway.
All right, so let's do that. So we'll pivot off. We'll go to Spencer Ware, and then we're
Matthews over Sterling Shepard,
and then Matthews over Sterling Shepard.
So now we have Luck, McCoy, Ware, Cobb, Matthews, Edelman, Bennett, Baldwin, Rams.
Okay, that's our lineup. All right, so if it comes back and LeGarrette Blount scores 3 touchdowns, I'm punching you guys like right to the webcam.
Not you guys. You can just hit me. I mean, I'm the one that kept arguing against it.
No, but
I'll take it.
I'm not mad at it. It's almost like last week where I looked at the lineup. I'm like, this is definitely contrarian. And,
oh yeah, they're still good plays though. Like the contrarian guys are still good plays.
Yeah. The Rams defense is going to win us some money.
I just like naked Luck.
I don't know. He's got to shave his beard first. All right.
It gives you something to stroke while you're cuddling.
There you go.
Oh, phrasing.
This is now bad. With that being said, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Process Over Results Live. As always, I want to thank my co-host, Joe Holka. Joe, do you want anything you want to say before we get out of here?
That's it, guys. Hopefully the Cardinals can get a win this weekend. That's all I really care about. Screw this DFS stuff.
And Jake, anything you wanted to say before we get out?
I thought I was done with stroking and naked Luck. That's
actually way to part ways. Love you guys. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. We're going to be here every Friday. And again, if you guys want, come hang out with me Sunday morning on twitch.tv/lightsoutfantasy. I will be there for an hour at 11 Eastern, answering all your sit-start questions, touching on everything DFS, and giving out a DraftKings cash game lineup. Not one like this, but if you guys are playing this tournament lineup, here it is again, one more time. Andrew Luck, LaShawn McCoy, Spencer Ware, Randall Cobb, Rashard Matthews, Julian Edelman, Martellus Bennett, Doug Baldwin, and the Rams defense. Until next time, guys, lights out.